Year two, just what are you looking forward to, and kind of making that next step?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about the direction we're headed right now. I mean, there's so many things to get done in year one. You're trying to get to know your roster, you're trying to bring new guys in, you're trying to keep the guys on your roster, and I think, understanding this league at a much more dynamic level as a coaching staff and understanding our players and how they fit within our systems. We took a huge jump, from a spring standpoint. We were able to retain more players, more depth. I'm excited about some of the guys that are coming back this season. That was huge in January. And then, I think to be able to retain the players that we did is a real nod and a tip of the cap to Coach DeBoer and how proactive he is in terms of having conversations with not only the players but families and representatives, right, for those players. We were very proactive, and I think we were the only team in the SEC that didn't lose a scholarship player. So I think that's a nod in the right direction, that the players enjoy what we're doing, they believe in what we're doing, and they're excited to go to work every day.
Coach, what did you do well last year?
Well, I thought we took steps in the right direction week after week, and specifically on defense. I thought, there were things that we identified that we were not doing well enough defensively. Third down, pass rush, some pressure, execution consistently, not giving up an explosive play, that we just seemed to get better and better every week, and to a position, right, to where I thought we finished really strong defensively the last half of the season. And so I'm excited that we were able to retain a core nucleus of about 7 or 8 guys that had a decision of going to the NFL, or there were guys that could have gone on to other places that we all know nowadays, right, there's pretty much a free agency at the end of every season, and we were able to retain those players, and those players have taken steps in the right direction in the offseason. So I'm excited about that.
What did Jihad Campbell do to make himself into a first-round pick?
Well, Jihad's it's a great story. I mean, just here's a guy that came in as an outside linebacker, moved to the inside linebacker position really the year before we got there, played, had a role in the defense, but it was very evident when we got here. Here's a young man with all the attributes physically. He's the hardest worker on the field. There's nobody that outworks him day in and day out. He plays with the highest motor, and he was able to play multiple positions in our defense because of the way that we're structured schematically and from a system standpoint, and he maximizes opportunities. I mean, he doubled his production in every area. Some ways he tripled it, and so it was fun to be a part of that, and it's really rewarding when a guy that does everything the right way and plays the hardest on game day gets rewarded in the NFL draft. So I'm excited. I think that the Eagles got, at the 31st pick, that's an absolute steal. So.
What's the toughest adjustment from going from coordinator to head coach and then back to coordinator?
Yeah. Well, I was so involved with what we did defensively at South Alabama, and Corey Batoon, him and I had ran the same systems under my dad, and so that part was a little bit more natural. But I think, when you understand the league, each league has a feel of its own, right? The personnel is obviously different, the schemes are a little bit different, so all those little nuances you start to pick up on as you get ready and go through the season. And the biggest adjustment is nowadays, you really have to kind of stay on top of, particularly for the first half of the season, what is the personnel going to look like for each team, because it changes so much from one year to another. That didn't used to be the case, and so you got to do a lot more personnel evaluation, personnel scouting, to make sure that you're not surprised by something the first 4 or 5 games of the year.
What did you see from Bray Hubbard last year, and what do you see as his ceiling?
Bray, we really challenged Bray in the offseason a year ago in the springtime. He had an okay spring. He had a little bit better fall camp. And then by the time his name was called to be our starter, he came in and had tremendous production. Bray created a takeaway in every game that he started in. And then I think he's taken his game to another level this offseason, just in terms of the leadership that he carries and brings. This was a multi-sport, multi-positional football player, athlete coming out of high school, and he has really settled into the nuances that make a great free safety. And then all of a sudden you change systems, and he's adapted really well to that. So, Bray is is a production player. He's a guy that can make plays for us. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this year.
What's the trend you've seen in college football on the offensive side to give you a problem?
Well, I think everybody's trying to do the same thing. They're trying to shape their offensive scheme around their personnel and their quarterback, right? And that's an obvious statement, but I think when you look at our league right now, you've got a number of teams that like to run the ball offensively through the quarterback position, and so that presents a number of challenges in and of itself. When you have wide receivers that can stretch you laterally and vertically, you've got tight ends that can make plays in space, and so finding ways to handle things on the back end from a coverage perspective but be structurally sound for the quarterback run game is something that we really had to evolve and adapt as the season went on from a defensive perspective, and that's something that's kind of on the forefront of my mind as you approach every game. You look at our first game of the season against Florida State, athletic quarterback. I played for Gus Malzahn. I know how Gus does things from a quarterback run game. Mike Norvell does the same thing. So those are the things, right, that you kind of have to be aware of, that everybody has an element to that in their game now.
Is the tight end the best matchup if you have a really good tight end because of the size and the ability to run?
I mean, I think when you have a matchup with a great tight end, it presents a lot of challenges, because schematically you can get those guys in isolated positions. You have to structurally, you're doing so many things to make sure that you're handling verticals down the field, covering the deeper parts of the field and all that, making sure that you have matchups on receivers. And so at times, right, there's going to be a linebacker or a safety that's going to be matched up with a tight end just naturally out of the schematics of how you have to defend a run pass down on first and second down. And so if you have a really good one that's dynamic, that can create minimal space, right? Receivers create big space, okay, but tight ends need to create minimal space, so they lean on a guy and then create space for themselves back inside or outside based off their leverage, and those things are difficult to defend.